Hello everybody, it's 7 in the AM and I'm about to make a 2-hour drive up to Blackburn because today I'm going to the SIS, aka Science in Sport, HQ for an ambassador day. Somehow I'm an ambassador alongside some really good athletes. One of them is Holly Archer, who's a 1,500 metre European silver medalist. Back in 2021 she got that medal, and a very fast runner. I think she's done marathons in like 2 hours 30 something, crazy time. So very excited to meet her. Also going to meet Mark Fell, who's got an endurance PhD in nutrition. That came out wrong, but a PhD in endurance nutrition is what I mean. And he worked with Ineos Grenadiers cycling team for 2 years. So I'm hoping I get to speak to him and ask him about that. And we get a tour around the factory, meet the other people, and hopefully get some nutrition to take home with me, because Kyle's eating me out of all mine, to be honest with you. He's loving the carb mix and the chocolate recovery shake so much that I don't get much of it. So we'll get a restock hopefully. But yeah, I thought I'd bring you along because it's something a little bit different. You don't often get to go to the HQ of a nutrition brand and meet people like I'm going to meet today. So yeah, let's go so I don't be late. Get me back on the bike. I wish I'd cycled here. The 2 hours in the traffic, gee whiz, not fun. But I'm really excited to be here, finally here, in the outskirts of Blackburn, in what looks like a big industrial estate. There's a big building over there that says Science in Sport on it, so I know I'm in the right place. I've also found out there's a man called Tim Don that's going to be here, who's a 4-time Olympian and Ironman world record holder. So I've never done a triathlon before. I have been tempted. Can't do it this year or next year because I've got a big plan next year, but maybe in the future I might try a triathlon, so maybe get some tips from him today. But I'm just really excited to be here because if you've watched my channel before, you probably know that I've had an eating disorder, and when I was a mental health nurse, I worked with people with anorexia, so I've always been really interested in nutrition. And when I started cycling, I wasn't really very well, and I wasn't eating enough, and I wasn't fueling myself properly, and yeah, it just wasn't fun. Like, I'd go on rides and I'd feel dizzy, and I wouldn't be able to go to a cafe without being really stressed and crying about it, and constantly counting calories, and just really too focused on what my body looked like and weight. And yeah, it just wasn't good at all, and I couldn't enjoy food, and I'd feel guilty for eating, and it just really wasn't healthy. And obviously it was an illness, but I'm in a much better place now, and fueling my rides is so important. And I always remind myself that if I don't fuel myself properly, I'm getting weaker, not stronger, and I'm not going to be able to do the endurance rides that I want to do. So I'm really excited for today to learn a bit more, because I'm always just so interested to learn about nutrition, because I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but I think a lot of people with eating disorders have an interest in food anyway. Like, I love food now. And I really love healthy eating. Like, I love cooking, but I'm in a place where now it's a healthy relationship with food. I can eat unhealthy. I say it like this because I think it's about everything in moderation. Like, you shouldn't deny yourself of anything. You should be able to enjoy everything. I can eat cake and I can eat chocolate and I can treat myself, but I also love eating healthy, and I love my fruit and veg. I'm like a little fruit fly. So yeah, I'm really excited for today to learn more about nutrition and meet some other amazing athletes. Not other, because I'm not really an amazing athlete, but they all are, so I can learn from them. Anyway, let's go, otherwise I'll be late. I'm 5 minutes early, but I'll be 5 minutes late if I carry on. Oh, also, I did bring my SS water bottle to be on brand. I thought, you know, make a good impression here. I've only just become an ambassador, so I want to make a good impression. Blooming heck, it's a big building, gee whiz. Well, I guess they do have a lot of stuff to make, don't they? Hello, you alright? Sorry, I'm just videoing. Oh, don't mind if I do. Thank you very much.
What I wanted to do this morning was to tell you how we think about science. I wanted to share some of the new research that we're doing, which we think is quite exciting. And hopefully you can then go and talk about that in the communities that you're active in yourselves. In the 1980s, he was doing a sports science degree. And at that time, in the late 80s, sport nutrition was really a young discipline. There wasn't really much science on it. And he started practicing what he was learning in lecture theatres, going home to his mum's kitchen and basically making his own energy bars, his own sports drinks, his own recovery drinks. And then of course he built a business off the back of that. And the marketing of science and sport back then there was no huge budgets to market. It was very much word of mouth, and he was giving these products to his friends who were all good cyclists. And years later, some of the best athletes in the world just then came to science and sport themselves, not through endorsements or sponsorships, because they believed in the products and they were feeling the performance benefit. And this is a great article that was actually published in The Guardian about 10 years ago. And one of the lines in it, you can see that Usain Bolt was actually buying his gels from Science and Sport, not through any sponsorship or anything, because he believed in the products. And over the years, there's been lots of milestone moments. I mean, from fueling the first Olympic champion back in the early 1990s to making the world's first recovery product that was formulated specifically for athletes. When David Beckham himself was famously pictured holding Go Electrolyte after scoring that free kick against Greece to take England to the World Cup in 2002. And then a moment that I was involved in personally, because I was working at Team Sky at the time, was winning 5 consecutive Tour de France's in a row, which is unheard of. That's like winning 5 Champions League titles 5 years in a row. And that was a real growth moment for Science and Sport, because that really elevated our brand in the endurance world. And we take a physiological determinant model, so we try and break down the physiological determinants of performance, but ultimately we try and then map on where does nutrition impact those performance. And actually it's quite a lot. So all of those things that you see in green are either nutritional ingredients, they're macronutrients, or they're nutritional strategies, or they're micronutrients. And actually you can superimpose where nutrition can have a little effect on any one of those physiological determinants of performance, and then ultimately you can get better. And we do that across this spectrum of strength, team and endurance. And even right down at the very bottom, feeding into that system is an athlete who can make the correct decisions, who has the optimal body composition, who has the correct supply of energy coming into the system, can digest, absorb and utilize that energy, is healthy at all times and recover. And so you can see now that nutrition is more than just food on a plate. And when I go to the US quite a lot and I speak to the US dietitians, they're very much food focused, and it's all about food service rather than actually, well, tell me how you're going to impact performance. And then they start to think about it a little bit differently. So we're very much performance focused. Our science strategy is all about paper to podium. My whole research career has been around high carbohydrate diets and low carbohydrate diets. I passionately believe in periodized carbohydrate approaches. Not always high, not always low, but both. What I'm talking about this morning is this fueling revolution in sport where, at least on competition day, athletes are really pushing the ceiling of how much carbohydrate they should have. Sometimes for the good things and sometimes for the bad things, actually. So I want to tell you what we think about this emerging science at the minute. Some of you may have seen this podcast that we did about 5 years ago. We called it Paper to Podium. I think it's still available on Spotify and iTunes and so on. But we spoke to we had 12 different episodes, and on each episode was myself, co-host Charlie Webster, an elite athlete, and also a scientist for a particular topic. And I think people are talking about this fueling revolution as if it's a new thing, but actually it's been bubbling for about 5 years or so. And this is a nice line from Teo Gegenhardt from when he won the Giro d'Italia in 2020.
It's a very fine line between fatigue being as a result of training or as a result of being underfueled. And of course, that's a balance that we're always trying to toe in a sport where your weight is still so important. But I think every year I've become more and more aware of how well I can fuel, and looking back at some of the big days in my career, and you think, wow, it's incredible how much I ate that day.
So I just want to explain the rationale of why you would consume carbohydrate during exercise to then provide the basis for some of the studies that I'm going to show you. So I'm pretty sure you're all aware that the body only stores around 500 grams of carbohydrate at rest. So that's split between what you store in your muscle as muscle glycogen, but also your liver. Your liver is very important as well. And so when you exercise, you're breaking down and you're using your muscle glycogen on the right, and that can run out within 2 hours of exercise. So you can run out of fuel. So in order to keep that fuel tank topped up, what your liver does is your liver then also breaks down its liver glycogen stores to release glucose into your bloodstream. That glucose then travels to the muscle. Now your muscle's got 2 sources of energy, the glycogen that's already stored and the glucose that's coming into the bloodstream from the liver. Unfortunately, your liver can run out of carbohydrate as well during exercise. So the obvious solution then is to consume carbohydrate during exercise. And so what happens, of course, is we consume the carbohydrate, we digest it, absorb it. It goes to the liver first. The liver then decides what to do with that carbohydrate. It can either retain it and store it, or it can also release it into the bloodstream to maintain this blood glucose levels. And then the glucose carries on traveling to the muscle. But eventually, even with feeding carbohydrate during exercise, you will run out of fuel. And when you run out of fuel, depending on the intensity, it's very likely that you're going to slow down. And I'm sure all of you have experienced that in your own sporting careers. When you consume carbohydrate during exercise, what tends to happen is you then use less liver glycogen. So you're sparing that liver glycogen store, which means that you've got more for later on during the race. I want to get into some studies to really illustrate how important this is. We brought people into the lab on the evening of day one. We did something called glycogen depleting exercise. So we exercised them for about 2 hours to completely empty their body of carbohydrates. Then we fed them high carbohydrates. So they consumed 4 grams per kilogram before they went to bed. They then had a high carbohydrate diet on day 2, and that's trying to recreate the traditional carbohydrate loading approach that we've known since the late 1960s. Then they came back on day 3, they had a high carbohydrate breakfast, and then they rode for 3 hours at an intensity that was just below their lactate threshold. And during those 3 hours, we asked them to consume 0, 45 grams of carbohydrates per hour, or 90 grams per hour, which at the time, people thought was the upper limit of carbohydrate fueling. But remember, this was published back in 2020. After those 3 hours, we then asked them to exercise to the point of exhaustion at an intensity that was corresponding to 150% of the threshold. And we did that to try and fatigue them within about 5 to 10 minutes. The reason why we did that test is if you think of a Tour de France, usually what happens on the climb is someone attacks and you have to hold the wheel. And you can't hold the wheel, you fall off the back and you've lost the race. So this is a test to basically see how long can you hold a given power output. So here's what happened to the participants' blood glucose concentrations. So in the 0 gram per hour trial, in the red dots, you can see that glucose starts to decline. And in fact, many people became hypoglycemic towards the end of those 3 hours. In the 45 or the 90 gram per hour trial, you can see the glucose concentration is elevated, so it's maintained throughout the 3 hours. And now what I want to show you is the rate of how much carbohydrate they were burning. So this is how much carbohydrate these subjects were burning in grams per minute. So the first thing you should notice is that even when you feed carbohydrate, your rate of carbohydrate utilization declines. So even with feeding carbohydrate, they're still running out of carbohydrate in the 2nd and 3rd hour of exercise. But you should notice that in the 0 gram per hour trial, this decline happens much quicker. Now, something as simple as consuming 2 gels per hour in the 45 gram per hour trial then maintains your rate of carbohydrate use much better. In the 90 gram per hour trial, it maintains it even more so. Now, what does that do to performance? Well, first of all, we collected muscle biopsies. So we actually took bits of muscle from people before and after exercise. We measured how much glycogen was in the muscle before and after exercise. And what we've seen was that at the end of those 3 hours, the carbohydrate feeding didn't have any effect on muscle glycogen use. So again, it's a bit of a myth in sport nutrition that you feed carbohydrate and it prevents you from using your muscle glycogen. It doesn't. It reduces the reliance on liver glycogen and not muscle. On the right hand side here, you can see exercise capacity. So this is how long the people could exercise after the 3 hours. So in the 0 gram per hour trial, they could only last 100 seconds. In the 45 gram per hour trial, they could now exercise for about a minute longer. And in the 90 gram per hour trial, they can now exercise for almost 250 seconds. That's the difference between winning and losing the Tour de France on one single day. In a 21-day stage race, you may not win the Tour in one day, but you can lose the Tour in one day just from underfueling. And I've seen that happen many, many times. And when you see drink, gel, chew and mix on the right hand side, and you look at the energy that's being provided from beta fuel, 50% of the energy that these people are expending is coming from the carbohydrates that they're drinking or ingesting. So it's having such a real metabolic impact.
So not achieving that crossover means that at 120 grams of carbs per hour, you're dependent purely on carbs and you're not going into fat oxidation.
Well, you're still using fat. You're still using fat, but you're still having carbohydrate dependency. So this is your predominant substrate. Carbohydrate's still predominant, which probably means that you're more economical, more efficient.
So I think it gave us a real opportunity to be able to be in with this team in this sport and really be leading the charge and innovating in the nutrition space. So with Ineos Grenadiers, the work that we did with them probably fell under, I'd say, 3 pillars. So one was all around sort of MPD, new products. The Beta Fuel range was a real prime example. So you can see in this picture, again, this is an energy gel that was provided bespoke for Ineos Grenadiers. I think it is, to be honest, was just a Beta Fuel gel that then subsequently went and became commercial. So we would work a lot with these riders to get insights into what are the gaps in the provision that we provide, what do we need to create or improve in that space to support them, and again, innovate in that product space. Again, another real innovative product was around the beta recovery or the sort of recovery space. So typically, if you're unfamiliar with road cycling, could race the Tour de France 21 days over a 3-week period. So it's day to day, back to back racing, 4, 5, 6 hours every day. You're crossing the finish line, you're completely empty, you're racing against the clock to replenish your energy stores, so you're on the start line the next day with a full tank of energy. And one of the key components that was highlighted was how can we create a recovery drink that when riders immediately cross the finish line, it was providing the right type of carbohydrates, the right amounts of carbohydrates, the right type of protein in the right amounts. And this is where Beta Fuel recovery drink probably was created in a sense where the likes of James would have an idea in his head in terms of, we know what we want to put in that product, we know what sort of best practice science suggests, let's create that product, let's trial it, let's use it with the team, let's carry out a scientific study running in parallel with that to support the efficacy of that. And essentially that's where we got to Beta Recovery, where we now have our all-in-one type of recovery drink where you're replenishing your muscle and your liver glycogen stores immediately after. You're getting the right dose of protein as well to support that muscle repair and recovery. But then we were able to carry out a bit of a case study project with one of the Ineos riders. So we got the Connor Swift, who was a British rider, was British national champion before, and this we got him into Manchester Met University. We got him to complete sort of was about a 1 hour 30 ride on the turbo, not taking any carbs in, trying to sort of deplete a bit of his carbohydrate stores. He could then consume the Beta Fuel recovery drink. So again, this was our sort of SIS lab formulation. We then had him in the MRI scanner, and we were able to then see what was actually happening from a data perspective in terms of his replenishment of his muscle and liver glycogen stores. Of course, this was only a case study, but I think it's fair to say that there's probably not too many sport nutrition brands who would go to this detail and invest this much on just trying to learn a bit around a product or a formulation that we were quite obviously passionate about and really seen it as a game changer in this space.
Little, I don't know what it is.
I'm okay, mate.
Chia seeds, I think. Sorry. Thank you very much. Right, we're now going for the factory tour, so I've had to take all my jewellery off, Kyle. I'm no longer married to you for the next half an hour. And I've got my high vis on. I think I will have to put a hairnet on in a minute as well, so get ready for that look. There's so much.
Runner, football and house.
You can smell it, can't you?
Okay.
I've never seen so much food.
So just a quick, so anyway, my name's Shabazz, so I'm the operations manager here. So I'm not, so there is a warehouse manager, but I can kind of quickly run you through it. It's more of the same. It's a racking of millions of pounds of finished goods and raw material. But we'll kind of do a quick walk in here, and then I'll show you the sexy stuff, the production stuff.
Oh yeah.
What I like.
We like a bit of that. Lab attire, so hairnets, the lot. Shoes.
Got my nails covered up now, so I'm not allowed to have my nails out, so, you know. It's hilarious. I look hilarious. I mean, the factory's not hilarious, but I look hilarious. Up there is the rip and tip, where you rip the bags and tip them. Kyle will be in the first part of that, the rip. He lets rip a lot at home, so be good at that.
All the mixes will go into IBCs, and we only fill them to a certain
there's the
percentage.
IBCs.
And then they're put onto the blending station, like little roller coasters. All this is mixing all the materials together. So it's making sure all your components are 100% homogeneous, essentially. And then the operators in here will take a taste test. So every single IBC, if it's a whey protein, they're drinking a lot of whey protein every single shake.
Well, my neck, if they come out here, yeah, exactly, there'll be muscle men that work here. Really?
So they don't have to drink the whole shake.
They have a little taste.
They're having a taste of it, yeah.
I bet they get sick of it.
So a lot of the guys are quite big into the gym, so they quite like it.
Oh, okay. So once they're finished in here, how many like protein shakes is in one of them? A lot?
Oh, it's more like there's 150 kilos in there.
Oh, geez.
So if you're doing 1 kilo, it's 150.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It depends what product you do inside.
Yeah. A lot, basically. They stay in there for 20 minutes and then they go here, and then the weight gets mixed around. So basically the protein gets mixed around there and then it gets mixed around in your tummy. Yes. Here's the gels cooking. So basically the gels get cooked and they have to stand for about 3 days, and then, yeah. They make 10,000 gels an hour. 10,000 an hour. How many people are having gels? It's actually quite stressful watching this. I feel like they're going to get missed. Yeah, the machines are stressed. This one, there we go. Come on, mate. Don't miss any. This one's got quite an easy job, really. This one's a slacker at the end. Got the light load. Yeah. Lunchtime. Oh yeah.
Sorry?
This looks so nice.
Yeah, so he's just still on the podcast stuff at the moment.
I've just got home. I finished the day by doing a podcast with Holly Archer where we spoke about women's health and the menstrual cycle and effective period on sport, and it was just so interesting. I didn't film any of that. That'll be on the SAS channels. But I had to dash off at the end because I had a meeting I had to get home for, which I felt really bad about, because I actually ended up in a lay-by having my meeting because the traffic was really bad and I left late. But I wish I could have stayed the whole day. It was just I learned so much. And I think my key takeaways for me is that, hello Chester, he's very excited that I'm home. Yes, I'm going to go on a run with Chester in a minute. I've been inspired by all the runners I met today. Holly Archer was so lovely. Met loads of other loads of other people as well. So I'm really bad at names, so sorry about that. But they were just all really inspiring. This man that runs like 100 miles for fun, he's from America. I was like, are you crazy? And the speeds they can run at, I'm thinking, I was sat around the table thinking, why am I here? But anyway, I think the key takeaway for me is to definitely have more carbs on my rides and not be afraid of gels and carb mix, because it's something I've not really been that honest about. But if I'm totally honest, I think there's still like an old eating disorder thing in my head, which is the reason why I don't have gels and carb mix, because so I know it's totally irrational, but that old eating sort of voice says to me, like, it's not real food, so don't have it because it's not good for you. But like, listening to the scientists today, listening to Mark, he showed me the research. It proves that having the gels, having the carb mix, makes you go faster, it's better for your body, giving your body what it needs, and actually it's not something to worry about. So bring on the gels and bring on the carb mix. I'll probably have to do a video having my first gel. So yeah, it's made me realise that I need to fuel properly if I want to be better. Not that it's an aim to be better, but I've got a big challenge next year and it's going to be really important to fuel properly. And yeah, I just feel really, really grateful for the experience. Hopefully it's given you something to take away and learn from. And I did also ask Mark, not on the camera, about cherry juice, because I don't even notice, but if you watch pro cycling, you'll always see at the end of a race they get given like a little red bottle of juice, and it's cherry juice. And I had it every day on the Tour de France when I did that. And I do think it really helps. So I asked him why. Like, I know it's good for recovery, but I don't know why. So he said that cherry juice is really high in polyphenols, which are antioxidants and they're anti-inflammatory, so they're really good for recovery. And he said it's really good to use that on multi-stage races for recovery, but it's not something to use in everyday training because your body adapts to it. So then your body basically uses that and it doesn't get stronger itself. So it's really good for like events and multi-day stuff, but on a daily training, don't have it then, sort of thing, just so your body can get stronger on its own without needing it. But so it's good for what I did, and I'll definitely use it on my long endurance events, but we don't need to splash the cash on the cherry juice for every day. I've definitely learned so much, and yeah, it's just inspired me to fuel properly and not feel bad about having, the Mark was saying to have something every 20 minutes, like have a little sip of carb mix or a little bit of a gel every 20 minutes on a ride. So yeah, it's definitely made me think, don't feel guilty for fueling myself properly, because sometimes my head does make me do that. And I think there's a lot of, especially like there's pressure on how much you weigh and what you look like. And I think, you know, elite, I'm not an elite, I'm just an everyday person that picks up the bike and likes endurance cycling. And elite professional athletes have nutritionists and the everyday person doesn't. And I think it's an absolute minefield. So hopefully this has given some help for the everyday people like me, just to not worry about having carbs. They are not the enemy when you're training. Although Mark did also say he does back having low carb at some points as well, like not having high carb all the time. Obviously when you're on a ride and when you're training, that's when you need it. So don't feel worried about fueling your rides properly and weight gain. You're burning energy, you need it. So bring on the carbs, bring on the gels, bring on the carb mix. Well, if it's good enough for Beckham, bend it like Beckham, cycle it like me. I'm excited to put this video out because I hope it will help people. And I'm really excited to be partnering with SIS because today's just proved to me that they really do care about the athletes and performance, and they want to make a difference. So they're even going to be doing some research into women in sport. Sorry. I think I've eaten too much today. The food they put on was so nice at lunch as well. Sorry about that. So yeah, they're really like committed to the athletes and they care, and they're not just about making money. They're actually, you know, they want to make a difference, which is really nice. So I'm proud to be part of that. But thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go on a run now because I feel very inspired. Not a 100-mile one like the other people I met today. I'm just going to do a nice 5 miles with Chester. Should we go on a run? Should we go on a run together? So I'm going to do a nice 5 miles with Chester. Nice and easy, aren't we? We're going to do a nice run together now. Shall we? Do you want to go on a run? Do you need your carb mix first? Should we carb load you up with some rice? Oh yeah, Mark also said, somebody asked a question about what's the best thing to carb load with, like pasta, rice, potatoes, and he said rice, because if you have pasta, it's got, what was it called? Basically, rice has a higher glycemic index, and so does white bread, so your body can process it quicker, whereas pasta is more complex and it can cause bloating and make you feel more heavy. So rice and white bread is the best option pre-race, pre-event, and the day before. So get your rice in and get going. Right, I'm going to go now. Thank you so much for watching. TT to the FN, ta-ta for now. Goodbye.